What's up, guys? For today's video, we're going to go over how we know it could possibly be a trend or a chop day based off of a couple things, and most of those things being VPA, looking for VPA gaps where price could move faster, where we're at on the daily, weekly charts, and then using pre-market levels as well as EMAs to give us a potential trend day. The trend days are what we're looking for those bigger moves, whether it be bearish, bullish, doesn't really matter. We're looking for a trend day so we can execute better. They pay faster, everyone wins, like it more. These trends are more looking, first thing intraday. They can flip, of course, and that's where the EMAs come into play. But for this sake, we're going to go and base this off of earlier trends or those intraday trends that have started and haven't reversed yet, but they could reverse. Just depends on price actions. The first thing I'm going to do, I'll just use SPY for these examples, makes it pretty easy, is just look at some levels, right? On the daily, I'm looking for not only VPA, as we see here, a little bit thinner. Flip over to the weekly. We do have a VPA gap here, so we know that price is going to move faster between these zones here as opposed to the zones up here where it's going to move slower. On the daily, my VPA is a little bit different. It's up on these up higher zones, so it's not really showing. But then second thing I'm thinking is support and resistance key levels. Where are we at, right? This level here was a very big key level at 410.64. And then we broke through that over here where we did have a couple of trend days off of a hammer candle. It's also important to know or to note what type of candle we have on the daily. For today, we do have an outside candle here, pretty bearish still, a little bit of buy up here towards the end of the day. So we'll see what that can play into tomorrow, right? Once we break through that and we're looking at these levels, say we're looking at today, some levels that are definitely big, 405, very big level, which is where we bounced off of here on this candle, 405.08, cool, oops, 405. And then these retests here up at 406.41. Throw that in here. So I'm just going to throw in some of these levels and see, how we react to them. Also worth noting yesterday's low, which was 396.5. I'm going to throw that in as well. Cool. So say, there's pre-market movement, a lot of pre-market movement. I'm going to flip over here to the hourly. We know that these zones here from about 402.5 up towards 410 are going to move faster, as well as underneath this 396.5 level, which was yesterday's low. We know those are going to move faster because our VPAs are thinner, less shares have been traded, and therefore price tends to move faster in these zones. The next step of this is flip over here to the 5-minute. We'll use today's as an example. I'm going to throw on extended time, pre-market and after hour levels. And I'm just going to use the lows and the highs. In this case, our low was 396.95, which was yesterday. And the high was up here at 404.54. Cool. So one thing we do know before we turn on the EMAs is that if we open above our pre-market high and can use this as support, this could be a very strong uptrend day. There's also a lack of VPA, as we can show here on the hourly. So this price can move faster, right? In this case, you see VPA, nice possible move up. Flip back to the 5-minute here. In this case, we have a shooting star candle off open, and we cannot hold this pre-market support, pre-market high level, which was resistance at 404.54, that big level at 405. So we end up tanking throughout the day. Now I'm going to flip on my VWAP 9 and 21, 8 and 20 are about the same. So one thing we know is once these levels or these EMAs start to separate from VWAP, price is going to move faster. We also can use our VPAs over here. We know these zones are going to be a little bit slower moving than up here, but this zone is going to be the slowest moving. Perfect. So in this case, we have this nice shooting star off open, cannot hold pre-market support. We close back below VWAP, retest down at our 921 EMAs. They are below VWAP. We get across here on the 9. So this right here indicates that there's probably going to be a downtrend day. And that is where, in terms of levels and potential flip, I like to use the hourly and VPA to know where levels are, possible bounces. The bigger VPA zones is the likelihood of where things are going to bounce, but also where things are going to get rejected. Now let's go back to yesterday's price action. Yesterday was another trend day once we finally broke down, a little bit more choppy as compared to today, but it was more of a trend day. So yesterday, almost same story. Test that high of pre-market. This retest here at 406.4. Couldn't hold that. Couldn't hold it in our normal trading day. And then the low, we get a lot of chops in here. We're below VWAP, below our EMAs. And the 21 EMA is over the 8 EMA. So this is the potential for a bear trend day, as we did have in this case. Now, if we go back a couple days, I'll use a 10-minute here because the 5-minute is not going to show me the day I want. But anyways, over here on May 5th was when we really broke levels and started having big downtrend days. And the reason being, we broke from a very key holding zone. We also had some bearish news, which is something definitely to keep in mind. But as you see here, we opened underneath all of these EMAs, under VWAP, under the 9, under the 21, and under pre-market support. So it's going to be a very fast day down. A perfect scenario is we have VPA gaps. We open either above or below all of our EMAs and VWAP. VWAP is creating separation between our EMAs, and this sets us up for the possibility of a trend day. Now, these can definitely flip intraday, as we can see today. Flip back here to the 5-minute, and that's where EMAs come into play, right? In this case, we have a bullish flip here. Once we hold this 396.5 area, the 9 EMA crosses over the 21, and we do have a bullish flip here into the intraday. So this is, it's just something to think about, right? It's not going to be 100%. But one thing to definitely keep in mind is economic macro type stuff that could influence our days. We had those FOMC minutes the other day, so those days are going to be a little bit different because that's a catalyst, right? So this could propel us either way very, very fast. Volatility comes into the market, and price action tends to be a little bit skewed in those areas. So that's one thing always to keep in mind as well, is what macro events do we have coming up, especially if you're trading SPY or QQQ. But those are the things I really look for. I look for VPA gaps. As a day trader, I like to use that hourly. And then I like to use the EMAs. If we can open underneath all of our EMAs and VWAP, a bear trend's probably going to ensue. If we can open above pre-market high, hold it as support, and open above all of our EMAs and VWAP, then a bull trend is probably going to happen for that day. Doesn't mean it can't flip intraday, but that's where EMAs, I like to use those a lot along with VWAP to really show me what the intraday trend is. When assessing, if it's going to be a chop day, I'll use the weekly here. Once we start to get more into these volume nodes here, we can expect more chop, right? Especially a ton of chop up here where these are much bigger than down here. We can expect a lot of chop here. We can expect fast moves from this 410 level down to about 390, 395. And then once we're under about 386, 385, 75, you can expect a decently fast move on the weekly all the way down here to about 338. So when looking the night before, looking at those VPA gaps, I like to look for tickers that have the potential and have intraday, especially that hourly VPA gaps, because that means we can move faster, right? I like price that moves faster. In this case, using this hourly, probably going to chop a little bit more in between 402.5 and this level here, about 399. But once we can get over that, we can push up pretty fast towards 405, 406.41, and then up towards about 409.50 is really where I see VPA start to get a little bit thicker, which I would expect more choppy price action. Those are the things I look for, and it's nothing too crazy, right? But using our VPA, using those EMAs as well as pre-market highs and lows can be very beneficial when assessing, is there a possibility for a trend day, right? Once we're in those VPA patches, can expect more choppy action, but never know. The market can change, and definitely got to keep in mind all those macro events, CPI, FOMC, all that good stuff.